Hi, my name is Anne-Marie O'Kane and I work for the Centre for Cross-Border Studies on the Border People Project, and we aim to gather useful information, cross-border information that will be of use to people who cross the border between Ireland and Northern Ireland regularly. So our cross-border workers, our cross-border students, shoppers or family members, there are many folk that this is relevant to. How Brexit will impact our cross-border lives is very uncertain, and we're trying to keep an eye on the negotiation. Of course, how it's going to impact citizens depends ultimately on whether or not the UK leave with a deal or without a deal. And considering that there's only one deal on the table at the moment, we thought it'd be good to take a look at how it will impact citizens living here. So let's take a look. Now, we know that on June 2016, the UK referendum was held and the UK will leave the EU as a result. Article 50 being triggered means that notice was handed in to the EU, and a 2-year period was triggered then where negotiations would begin on how the UK would actually withdraw from EU membership. So negotiations began in June of 2017 and resulted in November 2018 with a withdrawal agreement. The EU and the UK negotiators agreed a withdrawal agreement, but that's as far as it got for the moment. January 2019, the withdrawal agreement was taken back to the UK Parliament and it was rejected by MPs in the House of Commons. So at the moment, the deadline to leave the EU was missed, and the UK and Northern Ireland, of course, remains a member of the EU. Now, it is still the only deal on the table, and the EU says it cannot be tweaked. The Conservative Party wish to pursue or consider at least leave on the table a no-deal option, but Westminster has indicated that it will not allow a no-deal, although it is the legal default at the moment. So, considering that the withdrawal agreement that was agreed back in November of last year is still the only deal on the table, let's have a look and considering what it might mean for citizens living here. And we'll only touch upon the topics, of course, because it is a massive document. There's 585 pages of legal text that will outline exactly how the UK will withdraw from EU membership. Throughout the negotiations, there were 3 key themes that kept being prioritised. The financial settlement, which looked at the UK honouring its financial commitments to the EU. Citizens' rights, that's the rights of EU citizens and UK citizens, and the situation here in Ireland and Northern Ireland. And there was a special protocol or the backstop was written to protect the situation that we have here on the island and ensure that the island keeps working. So there are, of course, other separation issues in there as well, but those top 3 were the main issues that the negotiators concentrated on. Now, if the deal does actually get through Westminster and it is agreed, a transition period will then start. It'll start on exit day, potentially on the 31st of December 2020 at midnight, or 1 minute past 11 actually that evening. The transition period can be extended once for up to 2 years, so it might take us until December 2022. It will provide time for the new trade deal to be negotiated, and at the end of that transition period, the backstop might have to be used in order to prevent a hard border here in the island of Ireland, to preserve the island economy and to protect peace on the island. Now, which citizens? Not everyone will be included and will be within the scope of the withdrawal agreement. There's 3 million plus EU citizens living in the UK, and there's 1 million plus UK citizens out there in the rest of Europe. So they're the citizens really that were considered whenever the withdrawal agreement was being written up. Now, the EU citizens have to be legally residing in the EU by the end of the transition period, so December of next year, 2020. Legally residing, they're talking about EU law here. And legally residing, you need to be either a student, a worker, somebody who's self-sufficient, so wealthy, or potentially family members of those individuals. They will be regarded as being legally resident under the EU rules and regulations. UK citizens legally resident residing in the rest of the EU by the end of transition, it also applies to them. So we're talking about UK students who are out there in Europe, UK citizens who are workers, who are migrant workers, those people who are using their rights, their EU rights, by the end of transition. They are within the scope of the withdrawal agreement. Those individuals, of course, have a right to family life, so their family members who exist at the end of transition, so existing spouses, registered partners, parents, grandparents, grandchildren, etc., they will be covered as well within the withdrawal agreement. Children born before and after transition will be included and will have their rights and entitlements protected. Very importantly for this particular region, frontier workers and self-employed frontier workers, they will also be protected in the countries where they work. So we know that there's roughly 30,000, and there could be many more. There's some reports coming out now that indicate it could be many more than that. Frontier workers cross the border every day, so they live on one side of the border and they work on the other. Now, for EU migrants in particular, there's a really useful forum online, and there are many questions being answered there online by like-minded individuals in similar situations. The Forum for EU, or the 3 million. So I'd recommend that you check out that particular Facebook group to see, to take part, or to have a look at the discussions that's taking place, the worries and concerns of those individuals. Will all be found there within that particular group. So that's the citizens that is within the scope of the withdrawal agreement, but which rights are actually protected within the withdrawal agreement. So those citizens will continue to have their right to residence, their rights under social security, as they do now under EU rules. So we're talking there about the right to access healthcare in another EU state, social security, access state pensions, and to export benefits if they live in another country. So if you think of our cross-border workers here living on one side of the border and working on the other side of the border and exporting pensions, illness benefit, child benefit, it's really important. All of those under social security rules will be protected within the withdrawal agreement. The right to be employed and to be self-employed, they'll all be kept, and the workers' rights that are based on EU law, they'll be protected. Frontier worker and self-employed frontier workers, those rights will be protected, and qualifications will be protected as well. Those that are currently recognised under the EU rules will be recognised, continue to be recognised, and those that are waiting, that are currently in the system and almost about to be recognised, those pending decisions, they will also be honoured and protected as part of the withdrawal agreement. Now, the withdrawal agreement is, as I said, is an absolutely massive legal document, but there's a really useful explainer document that's been prepared by the European Commission, and you'll find it there. You can note the web address. I'll also put a link to the notes section of this podcast, and it's really useful. It's prepared in a PDF format. It's quite long, but you can quickly click to the pages that are relevant to you. So the citizens pages in particular are very relevant, of course. So you can check that out. Also keep an eye on the Border People website. We're trying to gather up as much useful information as we can, and we're keeping an eye on the negotiations. On the website, we'll also provide link to other expert sources of information from the European Commission, from the UK side, and from the Irish Government side, and from other organisations that aim to provide good, credible, trustworthy information to citizens. So that's all for now, but we'll be back again soon with another podcast that will consider a no-deal scenario and what that might mean in particular for the Ireland and Northern Ireland scenario. And we'll also have another podcast on citizens' rights and the divergent rights of citizens, particularly Irish and British, as a result of Brexit. So that's all for now. Thanks for joining.